Underlying the element of dualism in Christian theology is the problem of evil, and obviously the concept of God's non-duality will be unacceptable if it offers the same answer to this problem as pantheistic monism. Attempts have been made to escape the dualism of a God who utterly excludes evil through the idea that whereas God as being evil is essentially non-being, and having no ontological reality, cannot stand over against God as an equal and opposite power conditioning him. But if evil is non-being, it offers no real problem. It is a mere illusion. The more realistic theologians therefore describe evil as a tendency in the direction of non-being a desire, a mode of action which is quite real, although directed to an unreal goal. If God absolutely opposes and excludes this desire, it would seem that we have a clear dualism. But if we try to resolve this dualism by saying that this desire is like everything else, an aspect of God, the whole realm of values, will become illusory. From the standpoint of non-duality, evil is not and cannot be the opposite of God. Yet this is just what evil wishes to be, opposing God in entirely futile hope that it can exclude him, stand over against him, and limit him as an equal. This is its tremendous conceit. Therefore, the supremacy of God over evil requires that it should never be allowed to achieve this aim. Evil tries to oppose God, but if God were to oppose evil, he would not only be acknowledging it as an equal and opposite, but allowing it to fulfill its purpose. Hence, it is not by opposing evil that God renders it futile. He overcomes it through his non-duality, his all-inclusiveness, his love, which is unconquerable and supreme. Because it does not oppose and cannot effectively be opposed. Evil is the attempt to pick a quarrel with God, and because it cannot, it wears itself out with exasperation. Although evil struggles to exclude and oppose God, it never succeeds because he always embraces it in his all-inclusive love. To evil, this love appears like wrath and opposition, though this is its own wrath and opposition projected on the mirror of God and inflamed by perpetual frustration. It tries to mar the purity of the mirror by making it reflect its own loathsomeness. But the loathsomeness is simply reflected back to its origin with perfect clarity and serves only to demonstrate the inherent purity of the mirror. Not only is evil unable to oppose and exclude God, but it also achieves the very contrary of its aim. In spite of itself, it achieves greater and greater demonstrations of the divine love, just as in trying to destroy Christ the Judas achieved unwittingly the salvation of the world. This was because Christ accepted the injury done to him with the all-inclusive love of God. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The greater the evil, the greater it proves the love of God to be, because that love simply enlarges itself to include and embrace it. Evil originates not in God, but in the real otherness of the creature to which God is giving his own being. He permits it to originate because in refusing, he would destroy the real individuality, the very freedom of the creature. He would then be making the creature one with himself by identity instead of distinction. He permits it also because he knows that it cannot truly oppose him and in the long run can only demonstrate his glory and holiness. Theology, however, can never admit that God is responsible for evil. Yet although God is not responsible for evil, he makes himself responsible. Evil, to its own fury and confusion, finds itself adopted by God, finds that it cannot escape from union with him, finds it impossible to alienate itself from the love of God. If one make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there also. Thus God renders the evil desire futile by his very immanence in it. Yet if he were only immanent, this would amount to his condonement of and subjection to evil. But because at the same time he transcends evil and is in himself perfect goodness and holiness, he can give himself to evil without subjection, as the pure mirror is untainted by a vile reflection. 29. Thus evil is overcome by love and acceptance, when the one who loves is in principle greater than evil. But love and acceptance become condonement and subjection when applied to evil by one who is not greater in principle, which is why man is incapable of overcoming it by his own efforts. For man is involved in a dualistic relationship with evil. Evil is the opposite of creaturely goodness, but not of the goodness of God. It destroys creaturely being, but not the being of God. Of himself, man can only condone evil or fight it. But to fight it is like trying to smooth raging waters with a flat iron, or to drown out an abominable noise by singing hymns. The result is only an increased turbulence and discordance. Man can only overcome evil by grace, by realizing his union with God. Through this, he awakens to the transcendent immanence of God in his own evil, which effects the forgiveness of sins. He discovers that to whatever depths of depravity he may descend, he can neither escape nor separate himself from that given union with God which he has by distinction as a creature, as an othering of God himself. Because of this, he participates in the divine being over which evil has no power. If this does not move him to such gratitude for the gift of union with God, that he sets his will firmly against evil, he shows himself incapable of appreciating the gift, incapable of appreciating an eternal and unbreakable unity with love itself. And lacking appreciation, he excludes himself from the beatific vision, which is precisely hell. 30. In practice, the truth of the non-duality of God is difficult to accept for psychological rather than moral or theological reasons. Man is slow to accept union with God as a living fact. It involves high responsibilities. It involves an unwelcome deflation of that pride whereby man is always trying to attain union with God by his own efforts and merits. But union with God is a gift, a reality already achieved by the love of God. Man can only realize this when he ceases his proud effort to be God and wholeheartedly accepts his manhood, his very separateness, individuality, and limitation. In this sense only is he one with God. Again, non-duality designates something essentially free, alive, and ungraspable, which eludes all precise definition. It indicates the impossibility of possessing God, the mystery of life, in any fixed form of thought or feeling, or in any particular state of mind and activity, or in any graspable mode whatsoever, of which one may say, now, one have it. Yet man is frightened of this living, ungraspable mystery, and is always trying to have it securely boxed up in some philosophical, ethical, theological, or psychological formula where its vitality is destroyed. Thus, when mystical union is understood as some special state of mind or feeling that may be imitated, some particular experience that may be gotten and possessed, this is a false and devitalized mysticism. In trying to hold God in one fixed form, we exclude him from all others, and so far as our apprehension of him is concerned, devitalize him in the one that we hold. We lose his immanence because we try to grasp and draw down his transcendence. Pride and fear of the living spontaneity and mystery of God together contribute to an intellectual and spiritual rigidity which deadens Christian life and keeps God and man safely apart. Theistic dualism, which preserves the scheme of values but frustrates the union of man and God, is as much a petrifaction of the spiritual life as pantheistic monism, which affirms the union but invalidates the scheme of values. Compromise, which is in practice the usual solution, virtually puts God into the same order and hierarchy of being as man, only in an immeasurably superior position. Under such conditions, the union of God and man is at best a mixture and can be little more complete than the union of two human persons. None of these views fit the facts of mystical experience, of which the predominating type is the sense of union so complete that the mystic feels himself to be of one life and one being with God, and yet somehow still man, lacking the omnipotence and omniscience of Godhead and laying no claim to it. No more do these partial conceptions of God harmonize with the doctrine of the Incarnation. Salvation is the union of man and God, and the Incarnation is the means of salvation, because it achieves the union of man as man with God as God. It does not involve the conversion of man into Superman or demigod, because union with God is given to man as he is in his creaturely nature, as an individual human person, distinct from the divine person. The consistency of distinct human personality and perfect union with God is only possible in terms of the non-duality of God, for this union is more than a harmony of wills or a contact of beings absolutely external to one another. It is a union beyond the realm of duality, where to be and not to be God presents no contradiction, where the creation in all its creatureliness is yet one with God.